Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Chuk Mahath Tinsiem Nasiai, Stomach Siai Kuyan Sna. I'd like to first acknowledge the traditional territories of the Tawasin First Nation and thank them for allowing us to gather on their ancestral lands. My name's Ian Tate and I'll be your MC today for the 2014 Annual General Meeting of the Delta Chamber of Commerce, preceded by the State of the Community Address by Her Worship Mayor Lois Jackson and the State of the Chamber Address by outgoing Chair Orv Nickel.min. Anyway, I'd first like to start off by acknowledging some special guests with us today. We're pleased to have the Member of Parliament for Delta Richmond East and Minister of National Revenue, the Honourable Carrie Lynn Finlay. And Delta South MLA, Vicky Huntington. We're delighted to have you here, Vicky. And Delta North MLA, Scott Hamilton. Scott just came into the room. Thanks very much for being here. And representing the Corporation of Delta today is Mayor Lois Jackson. And Councillors Robert Campbell, Bruce McDonald, Ian Payton, and Chief Administrative Officer George Harvey. Please give them a warm welcome. And we've also got representing Delta Fire and Emergency Services today with us is Chief Dan Copeland. And from the Delta Firefighters Local 1763, we have John Burr. Welcome, gentlemen. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank our sponsor family who have been so supportive to us in 2014 and are continuing their support in 2015. Our platinum sponsor, Port Metro Vancouver, represented today by Tanya Hawk and Chris Clark of the Delta Community Office. Our other platinum sponsor is Delta Cable, and here with us today is Regional Sales and Marketing Manager Tanis Goodfellow. Tanis, lovely to have you here. Our gold sponsor is Century Group, and our silver sponsors include Alpha Aviation, and we've got Greg Fong in the room. Where are you, Greg? There we go. Greg keeps everything up in the air at CZBB. And when's the Boundary Bay Air Show this year, Greg? Whatever the Saturday is in July. Okay, you've got 4 to choose from. Anyway, thanks, Greg. Global Container Terminals Canada and Grosvenor Americas are also with our silver sponsor family. From Kwantlen Polytechnic University, we've got the Director of External and Government Affairs, Marlene Graziano. Love to have you here. And from MK Delta Lands Group, Director of Communications, Teresa Cooper. Where are you, Teresa? There you are. Just saw you. And we also have Polygon Homes and West Shore Terminals also rounding out our silver sponsors. Our program partners include Adisa Benefit Solutions, representing the Chambers of Commerce Group Insurance Plan, and First Data, provider of merchant solutions to many, many Chamber members. Our media partners, of which we have 3, very appreciative of their ongoing support. The Delta Optimist, represented today by General Manager Dave Hamilton. And Immediate Images, 3 screens of absolute wonder before you go through the tunnel, out of the tunnel, or over the Alex Fraser Bridge northbound. We have Director of Sales Casey Jones. Where are you, Casey? There we are. And of course, Delta TV. And we're pleased to partner with Delta TV to present the 2nd season of Made in Delta. And those of you who are Delta Cable subscribers will enjoy those episodes, I'm sure. I'd also like to acknowledge and at this time introduce our luncheon sponsor, Mr. Michael Mulcahy. Mike is President and CEO of FortBC and FortBC Energy Incorporated. He began his career with the Fortis Group of companies with Maritime Electric back in 1993, way out on the other coast. Lovely to have you here, Mike. Mike sits on the board of the Canadian Electricity Association, the Executive Council of the Western Energy Institute, and is Vice Chair of the Canadian Gas Association. He also sits on the Board of Directors for Fortis Alberta. So please join with me in welcoming our sponsor representative today for our event, Mr. Michael Mulcahy.
I can tell you with the weather they're getting on the East Coast, it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we're delighted to have you.
And I have been here for about the last decade, so not just a recent transition. Good afternoon. It's certainly a pleasure to be here with you today to introduce your keynote speaker, Her Worship Mayor Lois Jackson. Before I begin, I'd first like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish peoples. Many of you know FortBC as your natural gas provider, but we also happen to provide electricity, propane, and thermal energy solutions to British Columbians. We're Canadian owned and operated, and here in BC we service approximately 1.1 million customers. We have approximately 2,200 employees throughout the province, many of them located in the lower mainland, up through the interior, and a number also located here in Delta. We're proud of our long-standing and productive relationship with the Corporation of Delta, which began back in 1958. 57 years later, we serve approximately 30,000 customers in the corporation, providing made in BC energy solutions to residents, businesses, and industry. Our LNG facility at Tilbury is a perfect example. Liquefied natural gas is certainly getting a lot of attention these days. But many of the people would be surprised to know that Delta has been at the forefront of the LNG industry for over 40 years. We've operated our facility at Tilbury since 1971, ensuring our utility customers have natural gas during much needed peaking demand days, such as our coldest days of the year. Our highly trained team has been cooling natural gas into its liquid form, which is one of the safest to store and transport. That's why LNG is now playing a role in helping remote communities and the transportation industry reduce costs and improve their environmental footprint. Natural gas is the cleanest fossil fuel available today. Communities like Inuvik that aren't located near pipeline systems and rely on diesel fuel generation are converting to natural gas to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 15 to 25%. There's also a cost savings in using natural gas. Despite recent declines in the price of crude oil, LNG is still about 50% of the cost of diesel fuel. Both C-SPAN and BC Ferries have finalized agreements with FortBC to supply LNG for their ferries. By adopting LNG, both BC Ferries and C-SPAN expect to save money on fuel, which will help reduce operating costs. In addition to our traditional gas offerings, we invest in renewable solutions while helping our local business diversify and take advantage of new and emerging opportunities. Earlier this year, Seabreeze Farms here in Delta became the province's newest renewable natural gas producer. For the last 30 years, Jerry Cullen and his family have been supplying milk locally. Now Seabreeze has found a way to make its agricultural waste profitable. They're combining the manure from their operations with organic waste from Metro Vancouver, then letting it break down inside digesters on their property to create biogas. That gas is then purified into pipeline quality natural gas that we're purchasing on behalf of our customers. It's just not these infrastructure projects that bring us to Delta. We support community events and projects that make Delta a great place to live. Our community investment program has supported some great causes over the years, including helping the Delta Community Animal Shelter establish its new facility on Tilbury Island. At this time, I'd like to introduce to our keynote speaker today, Her Worship Mayor Lois Jackson, as she delivers her State of the Community address. A longtime resident of North Delta, Mayor Jackson has served the corporation since 1973, when she was the first woman elected as a councillor. In 1999, she was elected as Delta's mayor, where she's been a strong advocate ever since. She's also served as chair of the Metro Vancouver Board of Directors from 2006 to 2011. In 2005, Mayor Jackson was recognized by the Union of British Columbia Municipalities for 25 years of public service. While achieving much over that period of time, Mayor Jackson is particularly proud of her vital role in bringing 4 levels of government together in 2004 to purchase Burns Bog and preserve it as an ecological conservancy area. Other key initiatives advocated by Mayor Jackson include the implementation of Delta's debt reduction elimination plan, a Saving Our Industrial Lands campaign to stimulate business investment and create new jobs, spearheading the development of an innovative climate change initiative to reduce Delta's environmental footprint and protecting viable agricultural land, farmland in Delta. Mayor Jackson was awarded the Queen Elizabeth II Golden Jubilee Medals for Outstanding Community Service, the Paul Harris Fellow Award from the Rotary Clubs of Ladner and North Delta, an Award of Excellence for Leadership in Emergency Management from Delta and Metro Vancouver. With all these tremendous achievements, it's no surprise that this past November, the citizens of Delta acclaimed Mayor Jackson for another term. It's my pleasure to welcome Mayor Lois Jackson.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to all the special guests that are here today. You're all pretty special in my eyes. And we do live in one of the best places in the world, don't we? So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to give this State of the Community address to your annual general meeting. I understand that this is the 105th annual general meeting of the Chamber of Commerce. Quite an incredible feat. This organization has been advocating for business in Delta for more than a century. And as far back as 1910, the forefathers of Delta Chamber of Commerce, known then as the Delta Board of Trade, petitioned Municipal Council to build a bridge across the Fraser River. This was 1910. And then later advocating for dredging the Fraser River Channel to improve navigation. And it is truly amazing how far we have come since then. And yet in many ways our concerns remain the same. Ladies and gentlemen, over the last 105 years, Delta Council, working alongside the Delta Chamber of Commerce and other community stakeholders, have strived to achieve fiscal responsibility, better transportation, transparency, access to local high-paying jobs, protection of vital agricultural land, all the while promoting Delta as a place for industrial and commercial development. Rest assured that we will continue to keep the business community's best interests in mind as we work to tackle those long-standing municipal issues. We are very thankful to have the support and insight of the Delta Chamber of Commerce over all these years, and we look forward to working alongside Delta's business community for many years to come. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time ever, Delta Council will hold a 4-year term of office. This extra year provides an opportunity to further plan, consult, and implement our long-term corporate goals. To achieve these goals, I have challenged Delta's senior staff, led by Chief Administrative Officer George Harvey, to focus on the next 4. We are going to focus on the next 4, both financially and corporately. Our financial goals, ladies and gentlemen, for 2015 through to 2018 will be challenging to achieve. We have identified a number of priority capital projects, including major improvements to Delta Street, to Arthur Drive, 112th Street in North Delta, rehabilitation work at the Delta Museum, the construction of a new emergency operations center and fire hall and training facility at the Boundary Bay Airport. In addition, Delta Council is committed to continuing our investment in the Neighborhood Road Improvement Program. And this year, engineering is gearing up to undertake 18 new road projects. Additionally, Delta will be undertaking a facility condition assessment on all of our 80 civic buildings, Imagine, we have 80 civic buildings, and we are going to continue to do a facility conditioning assessment on all of those. The results of the assessment will be used to prioritize a rehabilitation program that Delta can plan and budget for over the next 4 years. Our challenge will be finding a way to fund all of these capital projects while staying committed to our no new borrowing philosophy. This philosophy, ladies and gentlemen, of no new borrowing has served us extremely well over my 16 years as mayor. And in the year 2000, our debt was $58 million, and I'm proud to say that by the end of 2015, we've managed to reduce our general debt load, and we're very short of $1 million, but we do have the aside with the Sun God referendum debt. And we're going to be debt-free very shortly, hopefully in my term of office. Thank you. I think that will be the best legacy I can leave this community if we can do it. And at the same time, we have continued to build significant infrastructure and community assets. Our 2015 to 2018 capital budget is currently set to fund upwards of $60 million in new capital projects. And all of this with no new borrowing. We're very happy to bring that forward, and I know George and the staff have worked very hard on this. Staff continue to leverage our project dollars by seeking grant funding opportunities. And you know, between 2009 and 2015, we successfully completed 16 large capital projects with a construction value of over $66.8 million. And that is 43 cents on the dollar that we pay. In other words, we were successful in acquiring $38 million in grants and other funding. This is in no small part due to the relationship that we have developed with our federal and provincial counterparts in Ottawa and in Victoria. Next week, Councillor Ian Payton, our CAO George Harvey, our Fire Chief Dan Copeland, and I will be traveling to Ottawa to meet with many federal ministers and senior bureaucrats to further Delta's interests. These trips have proven to be invaluable in the past and a wise investment for our future. This year, Council was determined to undertake a more interactive public budget consultation process using a new citizen budget software program. This program gives residents insight into the budget process and allows each citizen to register their preferences. So I really hope you take advantage of this. This is to see how Council might make budget choices on their behalf. The Citizen Budget Survey was launched on March the 5th, and it closes on March the 23rd. And we will be reporting back the results of this survey to the public in mid-April, and will set up property tax rates shortly thereafter. It is just one more step in this Council's desire to be open and accountable to the public. Delta has a long history of keeping tax increases and utility charges amongst the lowest in our region. And I'm proud to say that we are on track to achieve the same for 2015. Now, this year's property tax is targeted at 2.99%, with only 0.49% targeted at municipal operations. So that's 0.5% is targeted for our municipal operations. The balance of that 2.99% will go straight toward our capital infrastructure programs. So we can now look maybe a little bit about our corporate focus here. And perhaps the most significant challenge from a corporate perspective over this term of Delta Council will be the proposed Terminal 2 expansion at Roberts Bank. As you know, Delta is the home of the largest container terminal in Canada and the largest coal port on the west coast of North America. While we have experienced firsthand the benefits associated with port activities, we also always look at the other side of the coin. The trade and goods movements has brought jobs and economic prosperity to Delta, and approximately 3,500 jobs in Delta are port-related. That's a lot of jobs here in Delta. But it also has another side to it, and people look at that as we move forward. When Delta added the third berth in 2009, there were about 3,000 container truck trips made through Delta every day. The $280 million Delta Port Terminal expansion has seen the truck traffic increase to 4,500 trucks per day. And if the new terminal is approved, that $10 billion proposed Terminal 2 port project will see this number jump to 8,200 truck trips per day by 2020. And that is a very significant happening in this community. So in addition to port-related truck congestions, I am concerned somewhat about the land speculation which we see occurring in and around the port. And there is some 495 acres of prime agricultural land within close proximity to Delta Port that currently has options to purchase registered on title. The agreed upon value of these options is $68.4 million. Delta's agricultural land is under pressure, ladies and gentlemen. And this is extremely concerning to myself and Delta Council, and I'm sure the community, and the residents and the farmers. And according to Port Metro Vancouver, each container of goods moving through the port generates $2,200 in economic input. But, of course, then, looking at the other side, the economic benefits could come to cost perhaps too great a cost to the community. These are the things we're looking at. Moving a small percentage of containers, for instance, to an inland terminal at Ashcroft Terminals could mean less congestion on our roads, fewer environmental impacts, and less demand to develop our agricultural land for container storage. But one of my main reasons that I'm working so hard in looking at that inland terminal, and you've probably read about it, we've been working on it for about 4 years now, is really, ladies and gentlemen, to save our farmland. But going on to transportation, I'd like to say that fortunately in Delta, the provincial and federal governments have made investments in our highway system to ease the port's truck traffic and congestion issues. And you may be surprised to learn that there is upwards of 70 kilometers of provincial highway running through our municipality. It's hard to realize that until it's actually on the page in front of me. While it is the province's responsibility to upgrade and maintain these corridors, Delta takes inherent ownership because we rely so heavily on these corridors to move both residents and goods and services. To this end, Delta Council continues to work with our senior levels of government on a plan to relieve congestion throughout Delta. I am very proud of the leadership role that Delta has played in pushing for the replacement of the George Massey Tunnel. And you know, it's hard to believe, when was that? Scott, 5 years ago before the election? The then and now Premier Christy Clark stood in the room down over here, and I told her about our problem with the tunnel. And when she was elected, and at the next UBCM convention, she stood up on that podium and she said, "Lois, you're going to get your bridge." And you know, I got nothing except good things to say about Christy Clark. So she really came to the podium, and I was just so pleased to hear her words. And I'm really very pleased that the province has committed to start working on that bridge. And as you know, the sign says 2017, and that's still on target, as I understand. And Delta staff is working with the province to ensure that the new bridge meets the connectivity needs of both residents and businesses. As part of this project, Delta Council is seeking improved connectivity to Ladner. It's seeking a redesign of the Highway 99 and Highway 17A interchange. We're also seeking enhanced cycling improvements across the bridge, and we're seeking the provision of transit-only lanes that can be converted in the future to rapid transit opportunities. And speaking of transit, oh, what a great topic, right? I would be remiss if I didn't weigh in on the Metro Vancouver Transportation and Transit Referendum, which started on Monday, and it continues till May the 29th. Many of you may have received a mail-in ballot already from Elections BC, and you're probably wondering, what is in it for Delta? Well, the proposed 0.5% provincial sales tax increase, well, actually it's a regional sales tax increase, would fund the transportation and transit plan identified by the Mayor's Council on Regional Transportation. Some of the possible improvements for Delta include a new B line on Scott Road, expanded and more frequent bus service along Delta's highway corridors, upgrades to the Canada line, and enhanced handy dart service. And I had to look pretty closely to see, what are we getting for our money? And then what are we getting regionally? So if it helps the region, does it help us? Those are the questions you're going to have to answer when you fill in that ballot, and I really hope everybody does. And I do encourage all Delta residents and businesses to vote before the referendum closes at the end of May. And as an aside, I have also asked the Mayor's Council on Regional Transportation to consider reinstating the direct 601 service to downtown Vancouver as part of their transportation action plan. As always, we invite feedback from residents and businesses on all transportation plans, and you can use any of our social media outlets to provide your thoughts and ideas. To learn more about our transportation and transit plans, please join us at one of the 3 municipal open houses taking place across Ladner, Tsawwassen, and in North Delta in April. And before I move on, I wanted to talk a bit about our plans to potentially expand the seniors bus program in Delta. TransLink is proposing an expanded handy dart service should the referendum yield a yes vote. But Delta Council is not going to be waiting on the referendum results to help improve the mobility of Delta seniors. Since the North Delta Seniors Bus Program was launched in April of 2013, we have heard an overwhelming amount of positive feedback from that community, from the seniors. As a result, I have directed staff to investigate the possibility of expanding the program to South Delta. In addition, staff is also going to look at the possibility of improving transit service through the Tilbury and Annacis industrial parks by potentially using the 2 senior buses as community industrial shuttle buses in the early morning and the late evening hours when there isn't the demand from the seniors community. So in other words, during the day, the buses can be used for the seniors, and in the early morning and in the evening, when they have shift changes, we'll maybe be able to use those buses in our industrial areas. We're working on it, aren't we, George? And Ian, and all the rest of you wonderful councillors out there. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there are a number of significant residential developments under construction or currently going through the application process in Delta, and that could benefit from these transportation improvements. Up in North Delta, Blexo Developments has just broken ground, and there's a very large hole there now, on a 37-story high-rise, which will include up to 317 units and 24,800 square feet of commercial space. The new high-rise is located within one of the 4 high-density mixed commercial and residential nodes established along the Scott Road corridor. This corridor was created as part of the North Delta Area Plan review process. The North Delta Area Plan is now poised to shape development in the North End, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it takes us over the next 10 to 20 years. And ladies and gentlemen, in February, Delta Council approved the Marina Garden Estates project in Ladner, which will include up to 674 units, 16,000 square feet of commercial space, and a marina. And in Tsawwassen, Century Group's Southlands project has been approved by Metro Vancouver, and the applicant is working towards meeting an extensive list of requirements before Delta Council will finally consider and adopt an official community plan amendment for the project. This proposed project will include up to 950 units, 80,000 square feet of commercial space, and 286 acres of land dedicated to agriculture that will be put back in the Agricultural Land Reserve. In addition, we are seeing a significant uptake and redevelopment of the industrial areas along River Road corridor and at the Boundary Bay Airport. To promote and encourage further development, I am pleased to announce that Delta Council has established the Invest in Delta Mayor's Standing Committee, which will provide advice on incentive programs that promote industrial, commercial, and residential investments throughout Delta, review significant development applications, and identify potential development partnerships across the municipality. This committee will support our planning department, which has had a busy year. In 2014, the department issued 1,374 building permits, representing a construction value of over $283 million, and processed almost 300 land use and development applications. And in an effort to expedite the development application process at Municipal Hall, Delta has launched My City, an online portal that residents and businesses can use to centrally access information related to their Delta accounts. Anything from the status of a building permit application to details on property tax information can be viewed through that portal. Delta has also launched ePlan as part of the My City portal, which enables individuals to upload their residential building permit submission drawings for approval online. This new service will expedite inspections and improve turnaround times for the development applications. We are one of the first municipalities in Metro Vancouver to provide this online service, and I hope that residents and businesses will see the benefits of it immediately. And on the topic of businesses, I cannot stress enough how important small business is to this municipality. Not only do the business communities in Ladner, Tsawwassen, and North Delta contribute over $26.8 million to the Delta tax base, but they also form the backbone upon which our municipality was built. When Lanning, Kitson, and Fisher established the Delta Board of Trade in 1910, they began to weave an essential piece of fabric through our communities and our neighborhoods. And I am committed to keeping that fabric intact. Delta has retained Rollo and Associates to develop a South Delta business sustainability strategy for Ladner and Tawasin. The consultant and Delta staff recently held back-to-back workshops with more than 100 business owners from across South Delta as part of this engagement process. And I'm encouraged to hear that despite the significant challenges facing our businesses as a result of major commercial developments on the Tawasin First Nations land, there were lots and lots of positive ideas discussed and action items were identified. And I encourage any of you, if you have any ideas, please bring them forward for our discussion. And we can maybe just touch on public safety here. As many of you know, Chief Constable Jim Sesford retired last month after serving 20 years with the Delta Police Department. The Corporation of Delta and the Delta Police Board are currently working with an executive research and recruiting firm to find a suitable and qualified replacement. Public safety is one of the utmost importance topics to me, and I can assure residents and business owners that the new police chief will continue to uphold our no call, too small policy that has served this municipality so well. Our fire chief, who's here today, thank you, Dan, reported last year that Delta Fire and Emergency Services responded to more than 6,000 calls. Many of these calls were medical related. Delta is and has been working very hard for about the last 3 years in working with the provincial government to become one of the first municipalities in British Columbia to allow its firefighters to enhance their role as medical first responders. This increased level of service will provide a more effective response to many medical emergencies. This will reduce the time that people have to wait for assistance to arrive. And in conclusion, before I turn the microphone back over to our MC, I would like to recognize Delta's CAO, Mr. George Harvey, and the directors here with us today for their leadership and their direction. We have a lot to achieve over the next 4 years, and I'm counting on these folks to help us get there. I would also like to extend my sincere thanks to the Delta Chamber of Commerce Chair, Mr. Orv Nickel, and Executive Director, Mr. Ian Tate, for inviting me to give the State of the Community address and to swear in your new Board of Directors and your officers today. And most importantly, on behalf of Delta Council, I would like to thank each and every one of you for the contribution that you make in this municipality. The Delta Chamber of Commerce has stood the test of time because its members are committed to making Delta a better place to live, work, and play. And I hope that by the time we celebrate our 115th anniversary of the Chamber of Commerce, maybe, just maybe, we'll finally get that bridge built over the Fraser River. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for those words, Your Worship. And George, that sounds like quite a key performance indicator you've got, debt-free by the end of term, eh?
Yes.
Are you get it? Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure to introduce our next presenter today, and that is outgoing Chair, Mr. Orv Nickel, who will deliver the State of the Chamber address for 2014. Please join with me in welcoming Orv.
How do you follow up an act like that? It's going to be pretty difficult for me to stand up here and match that, but I'm going to try. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for coming and joining us at such an important event. I can't express the appreciation enough of all of our members, the board of directors, the government representatives, everybody that's here to witness this AGM and to bring in a brand-new board for us. It's been a long road. I've been sitting in this chair for almost 3 years now, and it's been a long road to where we are. But and last year I stood up here and I was apologetic about where we had been and what we hadn't been doing. And this year, I can stand up here and applaud the board members and the staff in terms of the achievements that we have been able to manifest. One of the things that I'm going to do, I'm going to talk a little bit more about it a little bit later, but the words strengthening industry and commerce have become ultimately more important over the past 18 months or so. These 4 words, strengthening industry and commerce, which is right here on our board, are words that entered a discussion in a chamber board meeting just a little further back in time when we as a board were looking for a way to meaningfully move forward to build a thriving chamber of commerce here in Delta. I think Ann Peterson will probably recall the meetings because she helped lead the conversation that resulted in the birth of that vision statement. We looked at the past struggles of our organization to determine what steps would meaningfully help to build this chamber. Looking around the province and across Canada, we saw variations of successful chambers, but none of these models really fit our circumstances. Perrin Beatty, a former federal cabinet minister and now president of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, spoke to us here at a chamber luncheon, and he and I talked about some of the various successes and other outcomes for businesses and not-for-profits. On the back of that conversation was born an initiative of success for this particular chamber. That reminds me of a story that I heard, and I thought that I would share some of it with you today because I think it's kind of fitting. It says, a young bank employee went into the bank president's office and immediately noticed an atmosphere of success. Piqued by his curiosity, he asked Mr. President, how does one become successful? 2 words, the president replied, good decisions. Well, the employee thought for a moment and then asked again, well, how do I know if I'm making good decisions? 1 word, the president said, experience. The employee, seemingly satisfied, started to leave the office when he turned and asked 1 more question. So how does one get that experience? And the president replied, 2 words, bad decisions. And now we're here in 2015. We're following along with the experiences that we've had in the past, and we have some great news to report. The bank's president's advice has a ring to real life where people humbly walk the path of life making decisions based on incomplete information, just to find they have to adjust and readjust decisions until your brain feels like it just can't think anymore. Then one day the phone rings and customers show up at the door and the sun looks a little brighter and the sky looks a little bit bluer. Experience teaches another lesson. Hard work, frustration, the desire to quit or to give up are all part of that success formula. It all takes part of that. So fast forward to March of 2015, the vision statement we created in approximately 2012 has now guided us to the results that I am pleased to present to this AGM. While 2013 was a difficult year for the Chamber, 2014 has been a year of rebuilding and success, done with new vision, new direction, and new energy. A year ago, we made some hard decisions and put the right structure in place to help us move forward, and the new initiatives we enacted as a board had an immediate and positive impact on the Chamber and the value proposition to our members. Here's an outline of what we succeeded in 2014. Ian, we're going to have to get you to get a new calculator because your calculations were a little bit off. He says we had a 300% increase in events and 300% and 312% increase in attendees. Well, those were 400%. They didn't. I think that I'm going to get Ian a brand new calculator. We increased the number of events that we hosted from 8 events in 2013 to 33 events in 2014. That's a 400% increase. Event attendance and participation increased from 450 attendees in 2013 to 1,783 attendees in 2014. That again is a 400% increase. After business socials, the Chamber hosted monthly networking socials that took place in venues throughout Delta, including Annis's Business Park, Ladner, North Delta, Tilbury Business Park, and Tawasin. After five business socials, after work events that provide our members with a relaxed and informal opportunity to get to know each other, get to know their fellow members and guests. In 2014, we hosted 10 after five socials. Networking and learning luncheons was another feature that is strong for the Chamber events. A monthly event where it's lunch and learnings or networking luncheons are similar to what we're doing here today. A monthly event where Chamber hosted engaging speakers for our members and the wider business community. Presentations ranging from industry experts like we had today. Michael, thank you for coming. In 2014, the Chamber hosted 9 networking and learning luncheons. 26th Annual Golf Tournament. Golf tournaments are sort of on the decline as far as fundraisers are concerned. And if you can maximize at 144 golfers, that's your maximum that you can take on the golf course. Well, we attracted 150 golfers and dinner guests that took part in the 26th Annual Delta Chamber of Commerce Golf Tournament in 2014. The popular and more than sold out event was hosted at the Beach Grove Golf Course, and we were pleased to have Delta Cable as presenting sponsor of the 26th Annual Tournament. Complimentary events for members, that's another, these are some other events that we did. The Chamber hosted 5 complimentary events for members. Each event included lunch and learn sessions with presentations on everything from Canada's anti-spamming legislation to Customer Love. And is that a new website I'm not quite sure. Customer Love? Okay. Member orientations were new, and prospective members learned more about benefits of membership and how the Chamber works to help build their businesses. Hats Off to Excellence Award Gala and Fundraiser. The 63rd Annual Hats Off to Excellence Gala was held on November 14th, 2014, to recognize business and community leaders in Delta in 9 categories. This year's award gala included 4 new categories: Green Business of the Year, Micro Business of the Year, Small Business of the Year, and Large Business of the Year. The Citizen of the Year award was presented to Vicky Sangster, and we're pleased to have Port Metro Vancouver as presenting sponsors to the Hats Off 2014. On Wednesday, September 17th, the Chamber presented a very special half-day Tawasin First Nations Economic Development update. And that went extremely well, and I don't have the numbers in terms of the people that attended, but it was very well attended. I was there. On October 15th, the Chamber hosted a networking and learning luncheon with Tilbury LNG contractor Bechtel Canada Company. FortBC selected Bechtel Canada as the prime contractor for the Tilbury liquefied natural gas facility expansion project. Bechtel Canada's commercial and business manager Michael Hurley and project manager Chris John provided an overview presentation followed by a breakout session, and I think it was exactly in this room where we held that, and we had people in every corner, and businesses go down, actually personally talk to somebody from Bechtel if they're interested in working on the project. And the lineups obviously demonstrated how popular that particular event was, and it was the first of its kind, and it's one of those things that you're probably going to see more of as far as this Chamber is concerned. On October 21 and 23, the Chamber hosted an all-candidates meeting for municipal council positions, so we did that. And I know that because I was there. I ran those 2 plus another one. There was another one that I was hosting, and they're fun events when you're the MC. They're not so much fun, I think, when you're the candidates who are sitting and being questioned, but that's the nature of the beast. In 2014, we broadened our outreach efforts through a combination of networking events and being out and active in the community and reestablishing our presence in all parts of Delta. As a result, membership increased by 17%. A total of 87 members joined the Delta Chamber of Commerce in 2014. 26% of the members take advantage of the Chamber of Commerce group insurance plan, which is one of the benefits of joining if you're a small company. If you're a larger company, one of the things that we like to ask larger companies to do is help us to provide some leadership. And we have, if we can, we'll get people from the larger companies to sit on the board or sit on some of our committees, and I think we've been successful in doing some of that. In 2014, a fundamental change took place in the way that we engage service visitors to Delta. This is part of our tourism program. As part of our tourist and visitor engagement and servicing strategy, we deliberately made the decision to get out of the visitor center and put boots on the ground in all parts of our community. We aligned the center and our visitor street team with tourism-specific businesses and a range of community events. The result speaks for themselves. In 2014, we engaged 1,939 parties and interacted with 3,652 visitors. That's pretty significant over the terms of the numbers that had happened before that. We've got, we're back in our rebuilding and our restructuring program at the Chamber of Commerce, and with that comes new committees. So we've now got, we've got two new committees actually. We've got a transportation committee and we've got a membership committee. Now, Gordon Payne and John.min are the co-chairs of our transportation committee. Gordon works in the industry and John teaches in the industry. John's a professor at BCIT, which brings the academic expertise to us. And John works in the industry because he's got, or Gordon works in the industry and he's got the expertise of managing the transportation programs. And so they run our transportation committee. And one of the benefits that we're getting from from that kind of a mix on the transportation committee is that we get BCIT students to actually come and do some research for us. So Lois, when we get their next report, there is a report, there is a study is just being commissioned on transportation in Delta, and we get results of that. We'll be happy to come and sit with you and George and actually talk about it and give you some results on that. So that's the way it works. One of the things that I said that was one of my goals for Delta Chamber of Commerce when I first started sitting on the executive committee was that we were not making decisions or having any discussions if it wasn't empirically based. It means there's some research that backs up the the discussion that happens, and we make decisions based on the empirical results or the results of the empirical data that we actually are looking at. And so it makes no sense to just have a discussion for the sake of having a discussion. If there's no evidence to back it up, then we might as well get onto something where we have that evidence and we can have a meaningful discussion and then put that into some kind of an action plan. And that's what we were doing. So Wes Levesque and Barry Hartman are looking at, or they're running our membership committee, and the objectives there are to proactively expand the Chamber's business network while determining the interest of members of business. So we are looking at making it or expanding that, and we've got other committees that are going to be coming up as our year goes on this year. So we've got a whole series of other things that we've been involved in. But I think that I'm sort of running out of time, and I'm going to just tell one quick story before I wind this up and say my thank yous and my farewells and so on and so forth. And there's a story that goes something like this, and I'm not quite sure how I'm going to apply this, but here it goes. It says, I can relate to the circumstance of the story from my years in law enforcement, and the story goes like this. A police officer pulled over a speeding car and engaged the driver in the following manner. You were stopped because I clocked you 80 miles an hour in a 60-mile-an-hour zone, sir. And the driver says, oh, gee, officer, I had my cruise control on at 60, and perhaps your radar gun needs to be recalibrated. The driver's wife sitting beside him, doing her with her knitting needles and not even raising an eyebrow, gets into the conversation, and she says, well, don't be silly, dear. You know that this car doesn't have cruise control. So the officer starts writing out the speeding ticket, and the driver looks over at his wife and growls at her, tells her to be quiet, and the wife smiles demurely and says, well, dear, you should be thankful that the radar detector went off when it did. The officer, hearing the conversation, writes up the second ticket for the illegal radar detector unit as the husband growls at his wife through clenched teeth and telling her to shut up. Well, the officer, hearing the comments, frowns and says to the driver, "I noticed that you're not wearing your seatbelt, sir. That's an automatic $75 fine." The driver said, "Yeah, well, you see, officer, I had it on, but I took it off when you pulled me over so that I could get my license out of my wallet in my back pocket." And the wife says, "Now, dear, you know very well that you didn't have your seatbelt, and you never wear it when you're driving a car." As the officer is writing out the third ticket, the driver turns to his wife and barks, don't you know when to shut up?" The officer looks over at the woman and says, "Well, does your husband always talk to you in this way, ma'am?" "No, sir," she replies, "only when he's been drinking." I ran into a situation like a time or two in my days on the road, and it kind of makes part of the fun of working in that environment, even though, as Lois was saying, it's kind of a dangerous and a difficult job. But I want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, again for joining us here today. The celebration is a very successful year for the Delta Chamber of Commerce. 2015 has kicked off to a great start with many new members joining, membership renewals, keeping our staff busy as usual. I want to thank Ian and Samantha and Louise for the work that they do. They're the ones with the feet on the ground. They're the ones that do the work for us at the board level. We sit and make decisions, we have discussions, but when it comes to actually execution, they're doing the job, and they're doing a marvelous job. Last year when I was standing up here reporting to you, we were way in the hole. I thought that we were close to having to close the doors, and today our revenues are at least $100,000 in excess of what they were last year. So I know Lois was talking about millions of dollars, so I feel humbled by having to talk about $100,000. But for the Chamber of Commerce and the way that we can do business, that's a real accomplishment. And I thank you all for your support. Thanks for being here.